In our ever-increasingly sustainable world, the move from internal combustion engines to sustainably powered vehicles is not only inevitable, but necessary. As I speak, world-famous marques are trying their best to create brand new vehicles for the electric segment while honoring and retaining the history and the tradition that they've worked so hard to establish. The legendary Italian brand Lamborghini have revealed their first attempt at an electric car. The LANZADOR is a bold testament to the Italian brand's commitment to pushing the boundaries of automotive design. However, is the LANZADOR's design a case of too much of a good thing? Has this design prioritized complexity over elegance and overloaded Lamborghini's statement of intent? Let's take a closer look and find out. So to start out with, first impressions of the new Lamborghini LANZADOR. The LANZADOR certainly opens up a new segment for Lamborghini and probably in the whole world, because this is something that my first impression reminds me of something I saw way back in 2013, which was the Ital design Parcours. It was called the Parcours. It was very similar in concept to this. I don't know which other car you could really relate this to on the road today, and for that reason, it's probably going to be very successful. That front end couldn't be anything else except a Lamborghini, all chiseled out, all angular. That canopy, again, probably something that we haven't seen before, or too often at least, in the design language from Lamborghini, the way it comes back here and has that sort of Countach, something, I don't know, maybe a Aventador sort of type belt line through here. Then we can see a lot of that chamfering happening with a combination of slight curves and undulations. You can see it's been toned down a little bit for what a Lamborghini is. You can see the intakes on the side being relatively smaller than usual. For me, this is a car that we have to look at as being not meant for a traditional market, a market of people who are perhaps looking for something that has that cachet, that ring, that Lamborghini connotation to it. They want to be a little bit more extreme than the usual GT type driver, and they'll have the performance to match, especially when it's electric like these things. Electric propulsion is kind of like a light switch, on, off. Very smooth, very linear delivery. Again, something that from this view gives you right off the bat the impression that you're looking at a niche type segment for Lamborghini. Now let's go around the car more in detail, starting from the front. Now there's two ways to look at this. One is that it's a GT, four-seater car, therefore it should be toned down. But on the other side, it's a Lamborghini, and Lamborghinis are aggressive looking. So knowing again that it's an electric car, do we need these types of intakes, these large openings through here, quite aggressive? Perhaps not, but from a first impression point of view, we're looking at something that does look like it was born out of high performance. So again, perhaps not needed, but it's not going to hurt the car in terms of performance. And again, it does lend to giving it that family feeling that we call it, that sort of familiarity, that design language that is characteristic of Lamborghini. Now the headlights, again, toned down pretty much for a Lamborghini, perhaps a little bit less mean, a little bit less violent, a little bit less aggressive, but still having that sort of Lamborghini squinty-esque type looking eyeballs, and they do give you the impression that you're looking at something a little bit different on the road. I think those in themselves won't tell you that you're looking at a Lamborghini coming at you, but the overall architecture of the car, the lines, the surfaces will tell you that it's a Lamborghini. Now, atypical for Lamborghini is the angle of some of the lines. For example, here and here, normally you would normally see the lines going in a different direction. Typically on a Lamborghini, they do tend to go inwards like that, so you would have more of a sort of a or pyramid shape when you're looking at it from this direction. That straight down there for me is probably not very Lamborghini. It does tone it down a little bit too much. It doesn't really look like it's going either in one way or the other. It's kind of wishy-washy and not a lot of personality. So in my opinion, perhaps that would be something that could give it a stronger look, a stronger resemblance to being part of the family group for Lamborghini. It's not a sports car per se. It's more of a, let's call it a mini-esque type SUV. And for that reason, you can see that the glass just seems to be at a normal proportion from the front of the car to the roof, that proportion to that proportion there. In a front view, typically on a Lamborghini, you're going to have quite a bit of glass coming towards the front. Now from the side view, the first thing that jumps out at me is that it does look like a Lamborghini. They've hit the nail on the head for a niche market where nothing exists at the moment in this segment, at least for Lamborghini. Electric, four-door, off-road capability. Now whether or not this car is really going to go off-road, who knows? You might have some crazy owners that love going off-road. But in general, I would imagine this is the kind of car we'll be seeing on the road, kids in the back, husband and wife in the front, partners, friends, whatever. If you have that kind of financial situation behind you, this definitely is the car that's going to make you stand out from the crowd. For that reason, I do kind of like it. I'll get into that a little bit later, but you do have your Lamborghini-esque type wheel designs, very geometric. You have, again, that origami style, sharp edges, sharp lines, lots of angles, a lot of form, a lot of chamfers, a lot of bevels, things that happen that you don't know why, but they do. A lot of different shapes, but they do work as one cohesive design language. Not that that language is understandable. It's like listening, I don't know, a foreigner who speaks English listening to Chinese. It doesn't make sense to them, but it does sound cohesive. This definitely looks like it was done with a hammer and chisel. And not that it's bad for that, but it's certainly distinctive. Look at the shape of the wheel arch cutouts. They're very angular. You can also see it back here. That's quite unusual in today's design language for most vehicles. But it does give the Lamborghini its own unique identifying design language. And for that reason, it's very, very good. Very different proportions for a normal car. You can see that the body to glass relationship, say the body goes down to here, the glass goes up to there. That proportion to there is very Lamborghini-esque. You typically have very, very low greenhouses and a bit more of a body side proportion to them, and it works very well here. Look at the beauty of the surfacing here. We have light, dark, light, dark. That really breaks up a lot of volume with different amounts of light hitting different surfaces, and it does eat away at what we call that visual weight. They've done it very nicely. Again, a lot of the angles helping that. You can see sharp edges, you can see soft transitions through here, but they all relate to each other. The car is very well balanced on its wheels. I think the plus point of this overall design is that it looks like nothing that we've ever seen before, but we still recognize it as being from the Lamborghini range. A few of the very nice details when you get into it and you analyze it close up, I'm sure you're going to see a lot of work is done on the aero side. You can see some vents in this area here. You can also see some vents in that area there, as well in this area here. So that works very well in terms of knowing that they've studied the aerodynamics on this vehicle, as well as in the rear wheel arch area right through here. You're getting some air out, and perhaps you're getting some air out here. I mean, the worst thing would be in some of those areas that we really can't see up close if they're fake and they really don't take in air. That's a critique or a thing that I've always not liked about Audis when they get to that range where they seem to be a lot sportier. They tend to have vents that are blocked off and don't really take in air or even let air out, and perhaps that might be the case in here. The other thing I really like on this Lamborghini, and that I think we should all push for as automotive designers, is the thinness or apparent thinness of the A-pillars. You can see that this pillar coming through here, which is body color, is very thin compared to what we see on the road today. That can only be a good thing. If we're talking about strength of materials, we're always innovating, bringing stronger materials to the market. If we can make them smaller and we can make them stronger, we can open up the visibility angles of the car, and that can only be a good thing. Lamborghini's done a great job on the rear end of this car. One of the things I've always loved, it's not very common to see, but it's this area here on a car. And look how much tread they're showing on the back of the car, the width in the track area, the width of the rear tire. That is very unusual. Most car companies will try to come down off the fender, come down, taper in slightly, and just go across like that. Most of this area will be disguised, you won't even see it. But what Lamborghini has done, and you can see it here very clearly, is they've actually pulled in the wheel arch after a certain amount of angle of coverage, which is required by certification and by laws that we have to follow. You have to cover the rear wheel as well as the front wheel up to a certain angle. And then whatever you do below that angle there is up to you. And Lamborghini have chosen to go in and basically just cut it off through there, giving you this impression of a rear wheel stance that really widens the car, makes it look very strong, very well balanced on its wheels. Very nicely done through there, very brave of them to do that. And again, very, very nice visually to see that kind of aggressive rear end stance. Diffuser, okay, maybe not a lot of development in here necessary simply because it's quite high off the ground. Nice job on the rear end. I like it that they keep the license plate low. It doesn't really screw up any of the aesthetics in the back when you see license plates coming across here. They give me a bit of a headache. Then they have their typical, or at least now becoming typical, graphic for the rear taillights. You can see that straight across the back like that, with that very distinctive shape to the illuminated part, which in my opinion is fantastic because too many companies today are getting away with very simplistic taillight designs that reduce the amount of character. Another thing that I really appreciate on this car that I really do not like on today's modern day cars are these extravagant spoilers that we put on the rear end. We're in the 21st century now. We do have something called active aerodynamics, which means that the wings work when you need them to work and not there when you don't need them. You can see that the Lamborghini there has no rear spoiler hanging off the top of the back of the deck or whatever. It's just probably not even necessary in a car like this. At the same time, probably the aerodynamics have been studied so as not to even need a rear spoiler on it to keep the back end down. And if they did, they would probably make it active anyway. So hats off to Lamborghini for making a nice, clean rear end without any over-the-top features that look like they've been added on. So in summary, on the rear end, a lot of angles, a lot of chamfers, a lot of bevels. But hey, that's Lamborghini, and as long as they keep it controlled and not out of control, it's going to look good for them. It's going to look coherent and consistent with their design language, and I think it works really well on the Lanzador. Not as big as an SUV. We don't really need SUVs. If you love that driving position and the comfort and the options and the versatility that an SUV gives you, good for you. If you would prefer something a little bit lower, a little bit smaller perhaps, still in that realm of being able to use it slightly off-road if you ever needed to, a new type of look, a new type of vehicle, here you have it. I doubt if anybody's ever asked for a vehicle like this from Lamborghini, but they're getting it, and that's what the benefit and the beauty of OEM companies is. They can offer you something that you never asked for, that you never knew that you probably needed, but when you saw it, you said, I need it, I want it, I love it. Finally, let's have a look at the interior of this new Lamborghini. And what do we see here? Something that looks fairly automotive, nothing that is looking too far out there into the science fiction world. And for that, I'm happy because we're not having that ubiquitous, that typical middle screen, display screen that all cars seem to be using at the moment, which is oversized and not really needed. I think if you do a driver-focused environment for the driver, for the pilot, and you do something that keeps the passenger entertained with their own display screen, you're winning. And they've done it really nicely here. I think it, again, works very well with the exterior of the car, this type of angular design language. Everything seems to be in control for the driver. He has everything he needs right there. It's a bit of a futuristic in the sense of lighting and the control displays and all those things, but it's not overly out into another world where you're disconnecting with the feeling that you're actually driving the vehicle. So you look like you're in control. You have enough of this cockpit feel to the driver location, and you have passengers going to be relatively content just in their own little world there. Not a heavily loaded steering wheel, very beautiful detail in certain areas of the car. And it just looks like they had fun designing this. I mean, it's a chance to do something that is a little bit, like I said, out of the ordinary, not your conventional type of Lamborghini. Who's to say that it's conventional in the first place? But this is giving freedom to the designers to come up with something that is fresh, is unique, and is immediately identifiable as a Lamborghini. So in conclusion, Lamborghini LANZADOR concept is a design marvel in many ways. It embodies the essence of Lamborghini's tradition of audacious aesthetics, its aggression, its innovative styling, and its functional aerodynamics are commendable. However, is it a car that you, providing you have the deep pockets for it, would like to have in your garage? Would this be a car that you would like to drive? That is the question. Me, yes, it's very unique. It stands out. It certainly will do the job that it's intended to do. Whether or not it's a fully capable 4-seater, 95 percentile male occupants, who knows? I don't really care. I think this car would fit. Two of something in the back, that's enough. But at the same time, I'm sure that myself and a passenger would have loads of fun driving this over regular roads, irregular roads, trails, wherever you want to go with it, hoping that it stays as pristine and as new as it looks here. But for me, it's a winner. So there you have it. Let me know in your comments below whether or not you think that Lamborghini's team have fulfilled their design brief on bringing to life Lamborghini's first ever 4-seater electric GT. See you soon.